If chance be the father of all flesh, then disaster is his rainbow in the sky. So when you see theft, greed, oppressive regimes, mass murder, rape, slavery, and large-scale natural disasters, it is but the sound of man worshiping his Creator. When one enters the hallowed sanctuary of the Church of Atheism, one is immediately struck by the gorgeous statues memorializing their scientific apostles and prophets. Their sacred writings from various scientific disciplines, which the atheist laymen put their full trust in, can be found in the scriptorium next to the sanctuary. Also, one can see the beautiful stained glass windows, artfully representing the many historic moments in atheistic history. In the background, Requiem Aeternam Deo is playing for all to hear. That may be a bit silly, but drives home the point of this video. I realize this will be offensive to many. A lot of atheists think religion poisons everything, so to find out they are just as religious as anyone attending Mass on a Sunday morning will be quite traumatic. Provide a number of resources in the info box. I think they will prove my point. Christianity teaches that man was made by God for the purpose of worshiping and enjoying Him forever. Due to the fall and original sin, this desire to worship became corrupted. Instead of worshiping God, man worships himself. Atheism is just one of the myriad of ways fallen man expresses this. Atheism has a God, naturalistic materialism. And anything that tries to get in the way of this God must be denied, and has done so in the guise there isn't enough evidence, even though the naturalistic materialist has already decided what is and isn't evidence to him, and when that is challenged, moves the goalposts. The Church of Atheism has religious leaders the little lay atheists must follow, and since these religious leaders are specialists in the area of science, the lay atheists must blindly accept as truth what these men and women say. Free-thinking atheists are only a myth, but it does make one feel better about oneself. I thought Dr. Berlinski drives home the religious nature of atheism rather well in his book, The Devil's Delusion, Atheism and Its Scientific Pretensions. Here are two quotes. Peter Atkins is a professor of physical chemistry at Oxford University, and he too is ardent in his atheism. In the course of an essay denouncing not only theology but poetry as well, he observes favorably of himself that scientists, quote, are the summit of knowledge, beacons of rationality, and intellectually honest, unquote. It goes without saying, here comes the atheist statement of faith, I'm adding that. Atkins adds, quote, there is no reason to suppose that science cannot deal with every aspect of existence, unquote. Science is, after all, the apotheosis of the intellect and the consummation of the Renaissance. Another quote, because atheism is said to follow from various scientific doctrines, literary atheists, what I'll call lay atheists, while they are eager to speak their minds, must often express themselves in other men's voices. Christopher Hitchens is an example with forthcoming modesty. He has affirmed his willingness to defer to the world's smart scientists on any matter more exigent than finger counting. I've received these same comments and seen these same attitudes in my encounters with atheists over the years. Science is everything and can explain everything. But that means one must place complete faith and devotion in the idea that scientists can be neutral when looking at the evidence. A farce, if I ever heard one. It is not within the nature of man to be neutral. We take moral corruptions and our own ideas and presuppositions into whatever it is we do. Scientists are not exempt from this, even though the little lay atheists would like to believe they are. And shrugging off teleology as stupid, as Messiah Richard Dawkins does, only further displays this religious devotion to this philosophy. In Psalm 2, it says, mankind seeks to cast off the shackles of the triune God and be ruler over himself. All God does is laugh hysterically at this futile effort. Atheism is nothing more than a vain attempt at casting off the shackles of their Creator. It is religious and classic fundamentalism. The difference is that it masks itself in anti-religious rhetoric, and therefore is a bit more seductive. As James Spiegel states in his book, The Making of an Atheist, the biblical message is there are moral dynamics involved in the abandonment of the faith. The human mind does not neutrally observe the world, gathering facts purely and simply without any preferences or predilections. On the contrary, what one believes about the world is always deeply impacted by one's values. People are inclined to believe according to their desires. We tend to believe what we want to be true. Spiegel goes on to say, God designed the human mind such that we would form beliefs through the operation of our cognitive faculties, judgment, memory, attention, reasoning, concept formation. When these faculties function properly in the environment they were designed for, we tend to form true beliefs about everything from the physical objects in our immediate environment, for example, I believe I see a tree, to moral and theological issues. I believe the world has a creator. When it comes to the latter, human beings have a natural awareness of God, which explains why most people believe in some sort of deity. However, human beings are also cognitively fallen due to sin. Consequently, our minds do not always function properly. Immorality hampers our ability to reason correctly, especially regarding moral and spiritual matters. And the more a person indulges in sin, the more his or her mind is corrupted. Sometimes even to the point that one's awareness of God is deadened. Atheism is a product of malfunctioning cognitive faculties. In Psalm 14:1, it says, "The fool hath said in his heart, there is no God." But why? That question is answered in the next sentence. They are corrupt. They have done abominable works. There is none that doeth good. Yet the Bible asserts over and over God has clearly revealed himself. Evidence. To mankind, what is going on? How can man deny God's existence when there is plenty of evidence? The word fool does not refer to a lack of an intellectual ability, but has a moral connotation to it. It basically carries the idea of one who is cursed and under God's wrath, to the point he is unable to even recognize the inconsistencies in his own argumentation. That is a scary place to be. Mr. Atheist, I could give you plenty of evidence for Christianity, for it is founded upon evidence. The founders themselves said they would be wasting their time if it wasn't historically true, and should be pitied for being so gullible if it was false, 1 Corinthians 15. But the issue isn't evidence. The unbeliever has a moral inability to come to the triune God, which he has to do humbly. Jesus said in Luke 16, it wouldn't matter if God raised someone from the dead right in front of the unbeliever. They would still reject, because moral corruption is the issue when it comes to the heart of man. The suffering and evil we see in the world testify to the truth of this fact. Man's problem is he is inherently corrupt, born that way from his womb. The atheist will deny God endlessly, though the sovereign God moves upon his heart to open his eyes. This is not something your intellect can get you out of, for it is enslaved to a corrupt nature. Your atheism is nothing more than a religious denial of your Creator. I showed this in some of my other videos, that atheist arguments actually, in a condemnatory fashion, agree with Holy Writ. This is yet another proof of this fact, and I believe my next video, titled Instructing Atheists, the Doctrine of Total Depravity, will illustrate this even further. I hope you think about this. Thanks.